this country will be well and truly sunk. So the man that has been given the job, this enormous responsibility, is a Member of Parliament for East Wiltshire. His name is Danny Kruger. He joins me, I hope he does, on the stage now. Good man.
The British political world just witnessed something nobody saw coming. Nigel Farage stepped up to the microphone this week with an announcement so shocking that it sent earthquake-level tremors through Westminster and beyond. What he revealed has left politicians scrambling, voters stunned, and the entire establishment in complete panic mode. But what exactly did Farage announce more that has everyone talking? Trust me, it's far more explosive than anyone could have imagined. Just days ago, Conservative MP Danny Kruger walked into a press conference in London. This wasn't just any politician, this was Boris Johnson's former political secretary, a rising star in the Conservative Party, and their shadow minister for work and pensions. Everyone expected another routine political statement. Instead, they witnessed political history in the making. Standing next to Nigel Farage, Kruger dropped a bombshell that nobody in Westminster saw coming. He announced he was abandoning the Conservative Party completely and joining Reform UK. The room fell silent. Journalists couldn't believe what they were hearing. The first sitting Conservative MP had just crossed the floor to join Farage's movement.
I don't think this country has much hope, but we are in such an advanced state of crisis. I'm afraid much of it the consequence of Conservative Party policy in the last 14 years, but accelerated by this terrible Labour government that we have. We simply can't have another 4 years of it while the Conservatives try and sort themselves out and get back into power. We have to get behind the leader and the party that I think has the best chance of bringing real change to this country. And it's not just a rejection of the Conservative Party that I'm making here, and I do reject them with great sadness.
But here's what makes this so much more shocking than a regular political defection. Kruger wasn't just any Conservative MP, he was considered one of their brightest minds, a key figure in their rebuilding project, and someone many thought could lead the party into the future. His decision to jump ship sent immediate shockwaves through Conservative headquarters. If someone like Kruger was giving up on the Tories, what did that say about the party's chances of survival? The impact was instant and devastating. Within hours of the announcement, Conservative MPs were fielding frantic calls from constituents asking if they too were planning to defect. Party donors started questioning whether their money was being wasted on a sinking ship. The leadership found themselves facing the biggest crisis since their election defeat.
I'm not just rejecting the Conservatives, painful as that is, I'm actually enthusiastically backing Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, who I think have shown over the last year, and I hope with my appointment this is demonstrated too, they have become a real serious party of opposition with an intention to be the party of government. And what they've asked me to do is to lead their preparation for government, because, as Nigel said yesterday, being so ahead in the polls, there's now a real prospect of winning. Nothing is guaranteed.
But Farage wasn't finished with his shocking revelations. What happened next left political observers absolutely stunned. Farage announced that Kruger wouldn't just be another Reform MP sitting quietly on the backbenches. Instead, he was being put in charge of something that sent chills down the spine of every establishment politician in Britain, a dedicated unit preparing Reform UK for government. Let that sink in for a moment. Farage wasn't just collecting defectors. He was actively preparing to take power. This was a serious bid to run the country, and he had just recruited one of the Conservative Party's best strategic minds to help him do it. The announcement hit the Conservative Party like a sledgehammer. Senior Tories, who'd spent months insisting that reform was just a passing phase, suddenly found themselves staring at the reality that their own people were abandoning ship. The defection was existentially threatening.
But our big weakness, and the question that we struggle to answer, is how can a team of people who've never been in government think about going into government? How can a team of people who, if we get elected, on a genuinely radical agenda for change, how are we going to deal with some of the barriers that we might face? They might come from elements of the civil service. They might come from the House of Lords.
But why did Kruger make such a dramatic move? His explanation was even more shocking than the defection itself. Standing at that podium, Kruger delivered a political eulogy that will be remembered for years. He looked directly into the cameras and declared that the Conservative Party was over. Not struggling, not facing challenges, but completely finished as a political force. Kruger explained that he had watched his party lose its way completely. They had failed to deliver on immigration, failed to control spending, and failed to represent the values that Conservative voters actually cared about. After months of soul-searching, he realized that Reform UK was the only party actually fighting for the Britain he believed in.
Britain is not broken, but it is badly damaged. And so in this crisis, something's got to give. I hoped after our defeat last year that the Conservative Party would learn the obvious lesson, that the old ways don't work, that centrism is not enough. that real change is needed.
The personal cost of his decision was obvious. Kruger admitted the move was personally painful and that he had been very proud of being a Conservative MP at times, but he couldn't ignore the reality anymore. The Conservative Party he had joined no longer existed. So what does this mean for British politics? The implications are absolutely staggering. Reform UK now has 6 MPs in Parliament, making them a genuine parliamentary force rather than just a protest movement. But more importantly, they have serious political talent working on their plans for government. Kruger brings insider knowledge of how Westminster works, connections throughout the political establishment, and proven ability to develop effective policies. The timing couldn't be worse for the Conservatives. They're already struggling in the polls, facing questions about their relevance, and dealing with a leadership that many voters simply don't trust. Losing their shadow work and pension secretary to their biggest rivals makes them look like a party in terminal decline.
To be Conservative is not to worship the ashes of defunct institutions. It is to preserve the fire that gives our country its life. The new custodian of that fire, the best hope we have, maybe our last hope, and I fervently hope the next Prime Minister, is Nigel Farage. I am proud to follow him, and I hope others will do the same, because Britain needs reform. Thank you.
But the shockwaves from this announcement are spreading far beyond just the Conservative Party. Labour politicians who had been dismissing reform as irrelevant are now taking a much harder look at the polling numbers. Reform UK has been consistently outperforming expectations, and now they have the political infrastructure to turn their support into real power. Keir Starmer's government suddenly finds itself facing a much more credible opposition than they had bargained for. The media response has been equally dramatic. Political commentators who had written off Farage as yesterday's man are scrambling to reassess the situation. Major newspapers are running headlines about political earthquakes and the end of the two-party system. Television networks are giving Reform UK kind of serious coverage usually reserved for major parties. But perhaps the most shocking aspect of this announcement is what it reveals about the future of British democracy. For the first time in generations, there's a realistic possibility that neither Labour nor the Conservatives will form the next government. Reform UK's combination of popular policies, charismatic leadership, and now serious political talent could transform them from outsiders to power holders in a single election cycle. The British people are watching all of this unfold with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Millions of voters who felt abandoned by the traditional parties now see a genuine alternative emerging. The establishment that ignored their concerns about immigration, crime, and economic decline is finally facing serious consequences. What started as Nigel Farage's personal crusade has evolved into something much bigger, a complete transformation of British politics that nobody in Westminster saw coming. Danny Kruger's defection isn't just shocking because of who he is, but because of what it represents. The beginning of the end for politics as usual.
Danny Kruger is aligned with us, but whether it's on the Brexit vote, whether it's on the Windsor framework, whether it's on ECHR, politically we're very, very aligned indeed. And he's just taken on a mammoth piece of work, and he's better qualified to do it than any of the rest of us that are in the senior levels of leadership in this party at the moment.
The question now isn't whether Reform UK can compete with the established parties. The question is whether the established parties can survive what Farage has unleashed. And based on the panic-stricken response from Westminster, the answer might be more shocking than anyone is willing to admit. But the most explosive part of this story is still unfolding right now. Within hours of Kruger's defection announcement, Reform UK's membership numbers started climbing at an unprecedented rate. Party sources revealed that they were processing thousands of new applications every hour, with many citing Kruger's move as the final push they needed to join the movement. The financial impact has been equally dramatic. Reform UK's donation platform crashed under the weight of supporters trying to contribute money. Small donors and wealthy backers alike were flooding the party with cash, seeing Kruger's defection as proof that Reform was ready to challenge for power. One donor reportedly pledged £500,000 within minutes of the announcement. But what's really sending the establishment into meltdown is the domino effect this could trigger. Political insiders are now openly speculating about which Conservative MP might be next. Sources close to several Tory MPs report that they've received informal approaches from Reform representatives. The fear in Conservative circles is about losing their entire parliamentary party piece by piece. The Scottish dimension adds another layer of complexity, with Reform UK now having genuine parliamentary representation and serious political talent. Scottish voters who felt abandoned by both Westminster parties are paying attention. Kruger's background in policy development development could help Reform craft a Scottish strategy that threatens both the SNP and the Scottish Conservatives. Meanwhile, in constituency offices across the country, Conservative MPs are facing unprecedented pressure from their own supporters. Local party chairmen are reportedly asking difficult questions about loyalty, effectiveness, and whether staying with the Conservatives is worth the political damage to their local areas. The international implications are equally staggering. Foreign observers who had dismissed British politics as predictably stable are suddenly taking notice. European leaders who had written off Farage as a Brexit-era relic are scrambling to understand what his growing influence means for future UK-EU relations. Even American politicians are watching closely, recognizing parallels with their own political upheavals.
So, yes, I have stood by the Conservative Party all these years through thick and thin. I have many good friendships there, and I think some good things were done, and I'm glad they were in power rather than Labour over the last 14 years. But I do think overall, those Reform voters who say nothing much changed, it's all one party, I think have a very legitimate point to make. What we need is genuine change, and you're not going to get that from either of the two main parties anymore.
But perhaps the most shocking revelation came from Kruger himself in a private conversation that was later leaked to the press. He allegedly told a senior Conservative colleague that Reform UK's internal polling shows them ahead of the Conservatives in over 50 constituencies. If accurate, this would mean that Reform is on the verge of replacing the Conservatives as Britain's main right-wing party entirely. The implications for the next general election would be revolutionary. The timing of this announcement couldn't be more perfect for Farage's long-term strategy. With local elections approaching and the government facing multiple crises, Reform UK now has the credibility and infrastructure to capitalize on public dissatisfaction. Kruger's expertise in campaign strategy and policy development gives them tools they never had before. Conservative Party headquarters has gone into full damage control mode, but their response reveals just how panicked they really are. Instead of attacking Reform's policies or defending their own record, they're reduced to personal attacks and desperate attempts to downplay the significance of losing one of their brightest talents. The truth is that this defection represents something far bigger than one MP changing parties. It's the moment when Reform UK transformed from a protest movement into a legitimate government in waiting, and everyone in Westminster knows it.